Hello everybody, it's the FPS tester here, aka Verda, and today we're going to be testing out Lost Ark with the RTX 3060 Ti with the 7800X 3D with 32GB of DDR5 6000MHz RAM. I have Lost Ark installed on a Gen 4 NVMe, and with that, let's go ahead and get to the settings. So to start with, we're going to be playing at 1080p using the Ultra preset, or the highest settings that you can get. It's very high technically, but the highest settings that you can get. We've got the real-time optimization set to prioritize quality. I'm going to leave the post-processing effects on as well. By default, motion blur and so on is enabled, but I'm going to leave it on since it is part of the Ultra preset. Let's see what kind of performance we're going to get. Now, because I'm no longer an active Lost Ark player, I'm not sure what sort of content is going on or anything like that right now, so I'm just going to jump into a Chaos Dungeon. This is also going to help with giving us a controlled environment because it's going to allow us to pretty much play the same area again and again and again for all the tests. It has been a hot minute since I played this game, so bear with me here. And even something that I do want to note, by the way, is like, even with the game installed on an NVMe, on a Gen 4 NVMe, mind you, like a very fast NVMe, it still micro stutters. Like, it still stutters when I go into new areas and so on. You have to just bear with me for a moment because I genuinely have not played this game since I last benchmarked it, which was a while ago. But right now, we're getting around 120 FPS at 1080p Ultra. I cannot see what I'm doing. I actually have never played this game really with this PC. I played it with my old gaming PC, which, let me tell you, did not like this game very much because, yeah, I used to play Lost Ark on a hard drive. Oh, this has been open the whole time. But as you see, like, when I load in, the 1% lows, it just stutters. Even when all these enemies spawn in, I just get a huge amount of, like, stuttering, even when it's installed on an NVMe. And, yeah, I used to play the game on a hard drive, and it had some serious issues on a hard drive. Like, the loading times were really horrendous, and there was a lot of micro stuttering and stuff. Just the 1% lows were just all over the place on my old gaming PC. Yeah, I really don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not doing this efficiently at all, but that's alright. Average FPS currently is at about 140, though realistically it does keep dropping below that to about 120 when we're actually fighting. Let's go ahead and jump to the next area. I'm not going to grab any of this stuff because I don't know what it all is anymore. But yeah, as you can see, 1% lows, they're down to 5, and that's literally just because when I TP to another area, there is a slight micro stutter, and there doesn't seem to be anything I can do about it. It really does not matter what I do. Is this normal for you as well? Do you get this every time you go to the next zone in the dungeon? Because I don't seem to be able to avoid this micro stuttering. CPU usage, it is all over the place. It's fluctuating quite a lot. Sometimes it's using anywhere from 30 to 50%, and I'm sure it's gone above that, and I just haven't seen it. Lost Ark always was intensive for me on my old PC. Let me know what kind of PC you've got and what sort of performance you're getting, because I'm interested to see, like, how much it's stuttering for other people, you know? Like, it's not that bad here, but when I go to another zone, I don't want to be getting micro stutters for a second while the enemies spawn in, right? We're almost done here. We're almost cleared this. There we go. I think this should be about it. There we go. See, another stutter as the mission finished and all the enemies despawned. We got a really obvious micro stutter, and it just doesn't feel good. It's like, what is happening? Maybe if I cap my FPS, it will go away, but I don't think it will. Anyway, let's get to 1440p next. Alright, so now we're at 1440p. Once again, using the Ultra settings with the prioritized quality on, it's all the same. Let's see what it's like now on 1440p. I'm hoping because our FPS is actually a little bit lower that it will help with the 1% lows. But yeah, I actually think playing this game at lower settings is probably the way to go, so you can actually see what's going on. Because I can't see what's happening. Like, it's almost impossible to see what is happening. Right? At least for me. It's just too much going on screen. Again, it doesn't really seem to matter. I'm still getting really bad 1% lows when we get to a new zone. Some people, it might not bother you, but, you know, when you pay so much for a gaming PC, you don't want to see any stuttering, right? Especially if you're supposed to be on a high-end, well, you could say 3060 Ti, yada yada, but you know what I mean, like, everything else. It's not exactly a cheap PC, you know what I mean? So you don't want to see these micro stutters. I get comments from people, you know, telling me like, oh, 3060 Ti is like really terrible. It's like, no, it's not. Yes, it's not the best, but like, it's not a terrible GPU by any means. It's so funny to me that people think that, you know, a GPU that costs like £300 is terrible, or £400 when, you know, back, it was like £350 round about COVID time. You know, everything was overpriced around COVID time, which is why I got the 3060 Ti when I did. But it's just insane to me that people think that, you know, to be able to play any kind of modern game, we all need to fork out £1,000 or, you know, $1,000 or whatever to just be able to play a game. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, it's not a bad GPU, and in all honesty, for like pretty much every game that I play, I can play it completely fine. Like, that's one of the reasons as to why I still have it. Sorry, the only reason I'm going to upgrade is literally just for the benchmarks, right? But yeah, here at 1440p anyways, I was getting a bit on a sidetrack there. We're at about 100 FPS on average, so seems like we've dropped around 20 FPS on average, going from 1080p to 1440p, but regardless, I can't really see what I'm casting. And I know I'm doing it all in a terrible order here and stuff, and it's just all going to shit, but it is what it is. I'm focusing more on the benchmark than the actual gameplay. Yeah, around 106 FPS on average it says there. Realistically about 100 FPS, but still suffering from the same issue of constant micro stutters. And also I can't hear myself talk when I'm playing this game. It's way too loud. I need to lower my actual volume. But yeah, let's get to 4K, see if we can actually play that. Alright, and we're at 4K resolution using the ultra settings. Everything's still on ultra like before. I don't think this is going to be very good, in all honesty, at 4K. I think we're going to see quite a significant drop in FPS. But one thing I'm not looking forward to, though, is that my monitor reverts to 60 Hz at 4K. And it's a 144 Hz monitor, so yeah, going from 144 Hz to 60 Hz, it definitely doesn't feel good. But maybe with it not really being an FPS game, I might be able to get away with it, right? So here at 4K resolution, in all honesty, this is not bad. 1% lows currently of 45. Obviously we've only just got started here, but that's going to dip down to around 5 anyways, you know, when we start teleporting or going through portals. Ooh, that was rough. 39 FPS there, Jesus. And by the way, it's just us, so we don't even have our allies particles, which I believe you can turn off in this game, right? You can turn off allies particles unless they're like AoEs that you should be standing in for buffs, so that you can actually see what you're doing, right? And you can see what you're casting and what the enemy's casting. If I remember correct, this game has that option, so technically you don't need to lose performance with your allies spells if you just turn them off, right? It's hard enough to see what's going on with your own spells. Also, I can hear myself talk now because I lowered the volume. I know, insane, right? It's crazy. This game's really loud, like, it's nuts. Tell me what a fantastic player I am, by the way, in the comments, you know? Like, my order of spell usage and stuff. It's been amazing, right? Surprised I'm not dying here. This dungeon is pretty much on my character's level. I think I left it around max level back in the day. I say back in the day like it was ages ago. It was literally about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. Can't remember at this point. But average FPS is at 60, but we all know that it does drop below that. We've seen it drop below that. Right, let's get through here. Also, how many people are still playing this? I see that there's still like 30,000 people online on this game, but whenever I log into benchmark it, I don't see anyone. It's like a ghost town. And nobody's in the matchmaking either, so it's kind of like, I don't know where everybody is. It's saying there's 30,000 people here, but I just don't see them. There we go, cleared. Average FPS, 60. Also, I didn't mention, but RAM usage, we're at about 23 gigs here in this game. And yeah, it actually looks like it's going to be more than playable at 4K at medium. But we're not going to test medium today, we're just going to be testing low settings as well. Video will be way too long if I test all the presets. So we're just going to test ultra and low. Alright, we're back in the game. I'm now at 1080p and we're using all the lowest settings on the low preset, which puts the prioritized performance on to maximum by default and turns off all the post-processing effects. I did just restart the game, which is why I mentioned now I'm back in. But also, I just want to quickly mention, like, this game takes an insane amount of time to load. It's on a Gen 4 NVMe SSD and it still took about 2 minutes from like clicking play to actually load the game up to get it to just start loading up. Like it took like 2 minutes, which might not sound like a lot of time, but it's a Gen 4 NVMe, and for this game to be taking 2 minutes on there is insane, because I can only imagine how long it takes on an SSD, and good luck if you're playing this on a hard drive. My god, I used to play on a hard drive, but I don't remember the load times. I just remember it would just have constant micro stutters. But regardless, let's hop into the dungeon, shall we? Judging by the fact that I've just entered the dungeon at 1080p using the lowest settings, we're actually CPU bound here, as you can see. So I might not even have to go ahead and benchmark the 7800X 3D independently. This might actually be the benchmark right here in 1080p. We're getting 500 FPS right now. Let's see what it's like once all the enemies start spawning. And to be honest, the game being at the lowest settings does not look that bad. All I would probably turn on if you could, if you can spare it, right, is probably some AA sharpening. And but the nice thing about having lower settings is you can see a little bit easier. It's quite a bit brighter, and the spells, there's not as many particle effects. It's just a little bit easier on the eyes, in my opinion. Now, we are fully CPU bound here, it would seem. We're not getting anywhere near a full GPU bottleneck at 1080p using the lowest settings. What the hell? I don't recognize this enemy. I've probably never seen it before, that's why. I don't remember this enemy at all. I probably never really did this dungeon that much. By the end of it, I didn't play the game that much. I just kind of quit, you know? There wasn't anything to do when I got to the end game. That's usually the problem with games like this. You get to end game, you just do the same stuff again and again. It's kind of like, why am I doing this again? Like, I could be doing anything else, or having new experiences in new games and stuff like that. And here I am grinding the same dailies day in, day out. And I've got a friend who still plays Lost Ark on a somewhat regular basis. And I asked him, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing in the game? You know, like, is there new content, or are you doing, like, what exactly are you playing the game for still? I was like, oh, I just log in, do my dailies and stuff. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that sounds awful. Like, you know, he's been doing the same stuff, I think, for literally a year and a half, 2 years maybe? I don't know. I don't keep up with the game anymore, so I probably don't know about the new content. Well, not probably, I definitely don't. But regardless here, we are massively CPU bottlenecked here. Not in a bad way either. We're at 260 frames, which is more than playable for a game like this. You know, I think most people would be more than happy with performance like this in Lost Ark. And surprisingly, it seems like the micro stutters are a lot less pronounced. At least I've not noticed them. So, or it drops performance really quickly. I did get a micro stutter there, but it was gone so fast, right? But yeah, 1080p lowest settings. We're actually CPU bound, so I'm not going to do an independent CPU test because this is literally it right here. 1% lows of about 50 this time, which is a lot smoother. Average FPS of around 300, but realistically, when we were fighting a bunch of enemies at once, it was about 260, maybe mid 250s. Obviously, you'll have been able to see it more than I could during those fights because I was concentrating a little bit on the fight. But yeah, let's get to 1440p, see what the performance is like. Alright, so we're at 1440p using the minimum settings. Let's see if we're going to get GPU bound this time, or if we're still going to be CPU bound at 1440p. Interested to see this. See, I got stutters there as soon as the game started. So all these enemies spawning at once just seems to cause it. And yeah, I don't really know. Do you need like a NASA space PC to play this game? Like, it's crazy that it just constantly stutters. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world, because it is just at the start when all the enemies spawn in, but still, it's kind of, you know, you don't really want to see that in games, for sure. Just takes a little bit of enjoyment away whenever you do get a little stutter, even if it's not exactly at the most important time, right? But yeah, I think I actually upgraded my PC because of Lost Ark. Not to the PC I've got now. I used to play with an Intel Core i5 4690 or 4670, not a 4690, I'm trying to remember. And I was constantly CPU bound, like, and I had a GTX 1060 3GB edition GPU as well. And I had that GPU because during the epidemic, yeah, the prices of GPUs were just so much, I had no money, I just could not afford to get a GPU. Even the 1060 was double the price it should have been, so yeah, I ended up buying it for like 100, I think not £100. Like I managed to get one for about £80, which might not sound like that much, but back then that was a lot for a 1060. I think I paid £80 or £90 for it, not including shipping or a package or postage. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was a lot for a 1060 back then, considering that they should have been priced, even back then they should have been priced at about £50. So yeah, and I also got mine cheap back then. I waited because they were selling for like £120, which might not sound like a lot to people, but back then it was epidemic. I didn't have money. I didn't have money back then, so I just could not, yeah, I just could not get a GPU. And the reason why I needed a new GPU is because my previous GPU that I used to play with, which was a 780 Ti, just broke on me, just died on me. So I had to upgrade my GPU then. Well, I had to not necessarily upgrade, but get a new one. So I figured, you know what, I'll just get a I'll get a 10 series. Yeah, I was actually still rocking a 780 Ti back then, but the games that I used to play, the games that I, well, not used to, but the games that I play, they don't require very beefy PCs or GPUs especially. So I got away with playing with less optimal parts for quite a while. I used to play Dota 2, pretty much primarily in Minecraft and things like that. So yeah, most of my games didn't require much performance to run, but these days I do play more performance intensive games. I think we all do. All games seem to have gotten really performance heavy. Like, you really need to have like NASA PCs to play a lot of these newer games that are coming out. It's really insane. I do see it in my comments, people always saying like, I lag so much in this game and yada yada, and like, oh my god, my GPU is not being fully used and my CPU is constantly bottlenecking me. It's like, yep, a lot of these new games, they're absolutely insane. But anyways, that was 1440p. I hope you enjoyed my rambling. Average FPS of around 240, 1% lows of 44 apparently, so not much lower than 1080p. Were we CPU bound or were we GPU bound during that? I actually don't know. I wasn't paying much attention to it. You'll know though. You'll see. Let's get to 4K. Alright, and to finish this video off, we're playing at 4K using the minimum settings, and I think we're going to be able to play this totally fine, even at 4K, which is kind of crazy. Though, if you have a 4K monitor, I don't think you'd want to play on lowest settings, and I don't think you would need to either, because you've probably got enough money to be able to buy a better GPU, but this is a bit of fun for me to test this out, so let's go. I actually just misclicked and started that with the spell. But my god, yeah, we're already getting around 150 FPS, and we are fully GPU bound here, which is nice to see. Yes. Earlier when I was talking about this game, you know, running really poorly if you played on a hard drive, I know this because I used to play on a hard drive with my old gaming PC. And I was always the last one to load into any kind of content. I don't think there was many times where I loaded in before somebody else. I recently, a couple months ago, tried to benchmark Valorant, and I put it on a hard drive thinking, oh, you know, it's just a silly little game, you know, it loads really easy, it's got tons of FPS, I'll just shove it on a hard drive. And I'm not joking, I actually had to Alt F4 the game off twice because it would not load into missions, like or into matches. Like, it just would not load me in. You know, in a lot of games these days, even games that run really well, they just don't work on hard drives. Some games just actually do not work on hard drives, and Valorant is pretty much one of them, at least for me. You know, we killed this guy, let's go to the next area. Feels really good though, like as you can see the frame time graph, other than when we load into new areas, it's really smooth. Average FPS of around 150. Actually, even like right now we're above that. It's really nice, even at 4K here. Though it doesn't look very good. You know, low settings at 4K doesn't exactly look good because you get to see how terrible the textures are in a much bigger image. You know what I mean? Like, it's more clear just how bad the textures are. Does that make sense? Is the resolution so much larger? Yeah, my god. I don't think you want to play at 4K low, but this is just a bit of fun. And it is possible if you ever wanted to do it for whatever reason. And there we go. Easy. Pretty easy dungeon. That's been Lost Ark. I hope you enjoyed my random rambling of random various topics. You know, you don't really know too much about me yet on the channel, so I just thought I'd give you a little bit of some stories from my experiences playing games and benchmarking and so on. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got some value out of it. If you did, go ahead and leave me a like. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and subscribe. Leave me a comment if you'd like to see a game benchmarked, or if you'd like to see something changed with the benchmark videos. And until next time, I've been Verda, aka the FPS Tester.